just want to give me one sec. Hello, guys. I believe we're live. To all of you watching out there, welcome to DDS Facebook page, DDS Live. And we're super honored to have Dr. Jameel Gardee with us this evening, as well as my friend, colleague, mentor. I can't say more about Mark Bowers. And you know, I think this is pretty much the start of many events like this to come. And you know, our whole discussion is around the fact that yes, you know, there's a new norm in terms of dentistry, and there's lots of changes that we face. And you know, for Digital Dental Society and for DDS South Africa, you know, this is pretty much going to become our norm. So our plan is, you know, on a weekly basis, every Friday, more or less around the same time, we're going to have a live stream. It's going to be a live stream based on similar concepts to this. It's going to be a live stream based on, you know, bringing the international experience to South Africa, which was our whole objective from the outset. And, you know, we really look forward to this journey. I mean, next week, Friday, we've got Marcus Trulsch joining us from Germany. The week after that, we've got Sam Umar joining us from Egypt. Amazing guy in terms of augmented reality, art-to-gate, implant planning. The week after that, we've got Eugene joining us from the States in terms of artificial intelligence and the role it plays in dentistry, as well as some amazing AI software that he's developed in terms of CBCT and diagnostics. So that's just a glimpse into what's to come over the next few weeks, and we really look forward to having all of you with us. So without much ado, I'm going to hand over to, I'm going to let Jameel do his own introduction, because you know, with this guy, I just can't keep up. Like every time I check his resume, and it's just gone from, I really can't keep up. So rather than me missing anything out, Jameel, let's just hear it from you.
Yeah, hi guys, and thank you so much for the invitation to join you guys this afternoon. It's a real pleasure for me anytime to spend time with some of my South African colleagues. You know, it's a great day because you guys are really, although you're all the way down south, you're really leading the world in a lot of the things that you're doing. And Mark and I, just off air, were talking about how important it is that South Africa takes the lead, because the processes that you guys have put in place, the early lockdown that you took, is a very brave and with a lot of foresight to be able to do that, things that we didn't do. So just by way of introduction, I'm a dentist, just like yourselves. I was born in South Africa. So that's why I don't have a Scottish accent. And I've been a dentist for over 20 years now. And, you know, literally it's the best career in the world. I loved every single moment of it. And, you know, it's my passion and my life. I was on a webinar with Ken Sirota on Nexus a few days ago. And I was saying to him, it's literally the last thing I think about when I go to sleep, and the first thing I think about when you get up. That's sad, but I think all of us are like this. We love dentistry so much that I don't think
reality
out there that's like it. So I was I work in mostly private practice. My practice really limited to digital dentistry in the field of cosmetic and restorative dentistry and implants as well. We are a DSD clinic just like Mark's. I'm very fortunate to be a DSD KOL. I'm vice president of the DDS UK, so the organization that we're representing today. And I'm also on the board of the newly formed European Academy of Digital Dentistry. So there's some super exciting things going on, but the passion at the moment is really digital dentistry and restorative dentistry. And then, like you said, I don't think Mark needs any introduction because he's really the godfather of, that was the term that you mentioned, the godfather of dentistry.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just from my side, I'd like to obviously thank you here in open with all the people around, because actually it was yourself who sent me a message, I think, way late one night saying, please get in contact with Henrietta Lerner because they're looking for, you know, someone to represent South Africa in the DDS society. And so thanks a lot for that, by the way. because yeah, it's a great group, because really I think that, you know, whenever you bring together so many good minds, you know, around the world and share information, then you know, so many good things can come out of it. And there's no question that if you're looking in the digital kind of sphere of dentistry, DDS is a leading group for sure. I mean, we have some of the top digital people on representing each country, so it's for sure growing. And you know, hopefully in South Africa we're going to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. So Jameel, coming back to you, I mean, what was your whole drive? Why dentistry?
That's a great question. So I don't think you know, I come from a family that has a medical background. So I get my father's a doctor and his brother's a doctor, and you know, way back there has been some sort of medical influences in the family. But I never thought that I would really love dentistry as much as I do today, because when I went through, I knew I was going to go into the medical field. Just by luck, I chose dentistry. I think it was one of these things that you just had to pick, because I really didn't know what to do. Like a lot of people, you go to university and then you find out what's, you know, exactly what the reality of it is. I mean, I went out to certain dentists to go and get some experience, but it was like basic NHS dentistry, run of the mill. This is now in the 80s, you know, so it wasn't really anything like dentistry is today. But it was really only when I graduated and I went into vocational training, because as part of, I think you guys have to go and do some public work for a few years before you can go in. So for us in the UK, we have to do a little bit of training, another year or two, just with a dentist that's training is called vocational training. And only when I went there into general practice, and I had a brilliant trainer, Peter Cunningham, based out in Glasgow in Paisley, and he really opened my mind up and opened my eyes up to what, you know, really the beauty of day-to-day dentistry is, and the effect that you can have on people's lives, especially when we were doing smile design cases and aesthetic rehabilitations. So you know, he was quite you know, you had to do a case presentation as part of the course, and you had to take photographs, and at that time we didn't have digital photographs, right? So you had to get them developed, and there were all these problems with, you know, did you get the patient blinking, and then developing them and having to redo them as well. So we always knew there were some issues with the analog workflow, but still I loved it. I really loved that whole process. I ended up winning the presentation, and that just gave me a little bit of a bug for aesthetic dentistry. But I think the real next change started when I went to the States, and just seeing the attitude that dentists there have, and the attitude of the public towards dentists, because it wasn't really like that in the UK. You know, they're very respected. They're a really big part of society, and it really made me understand the totality of how great a profession we're in. So I think the answer why dentistry was really just, like most people, you know, you want to do something. I knew I wanted to do something in the medical field because I love the sciences, and thank God that I did dentistry, because, like I said, I've never looked back.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Mark, what was it for you?
For me, it was a little different. In fact, I had a great conversation with Ken also 2 weeks ago, and we discussed a little bit of this. And I used to be kind of a little bit embarrassed, but now I'm really proud of it. That actually, in about 5 months, 6 months time, will be my 40th anniversary as being a dentist. So, wow, you know,
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Isn't it? I mean, it's like. But I always go on to say, okay, but that makes me look really, really old. That I started dentistry when I was 16 and finished when I was 21.
But Mark, I told you before, there's some people that just don't get old, and you're one of those, you know?
Yeah, but that's serious. I was at dental school at 16, and I was qualified at 21. And then he said, okay, that's really crazy. I said, no, it gets crazier, because when we were at school, we did matric, we had to choose our subjects for whatever degree we were going to take. You know, so they sat us down when we were in standard 8, which was then 14. And they said, okay, that was the career guidance. Like, you need to choose a profession, because you need to decide whether you're going to do English and history and geography, or you're going to do maths, biochemistry, physics. So I said, and then I thought, and then I still remember in my mind, I thought, I was at boarding school at my class, and I'd just come back from a holiday, and I'd had to go and see my dentist and orthodontist. And first of all, my dentist was the most amazing guy and didn't hurt me. I was like, wow, that guy's so cool. And then I went to the orthodontist, and he had this bright pink Porsche. It was back in the day. And I was like, wow, that really impressed me. And when the guy then said to me, what do you want to be? I just remember the pink Porsche. And I said, like dentistry, you know. And he was like, okay, that's great. You need to study physics, chemistry, biology. And I mean, at 14, there's no way you're going to have any idea about the career. There's no way. And exactly what you say. Thank goodness I made such a good decision, because I can tell you there's not once that I've looked back and said, shit, I wished I'd done something else, you know. And here I am 40 years later.
That's
and
amazing.
I wake up, and I wake up in the morning and I just think about what I'm going to be doing, and you know, and I go into my clinic, and I've had 2 weeks back, and it's been amazing. I love absolutely doing what I do, and yeah. So you know, I don't know when the passion will run out, but I'm certainly now with the COVID problems we've had, I'm going to have to work for at least another 10 years. But anyway, I think we've got an amazing profession, you know, and over the 40 years, I can honestly say that right now is by far the most exciting time to be a dentist. I think you guys will agree.
I agree with you. You know, I think, you know, one thing I want your opinion on, Mark, is that we know we loved it. We love it. We're always going to love it. But we really haven't articulated this to the public so much. And because of that, we've kind of been, the sad thing is we've kind of been left behind, especially here in the UK, with all the things that, you know, the regulations that they're trying to put in. When's dentistry going to come back? We're kind of like an afterthought. And possibly, you know, we have such a great passion for dentistry, but we didn't articulate it. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do. And yeah, well, you carry on, Sam. So what do you think about that?
No, I think, Jameel, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if you look at our profession and you look at, you know, where we've been pitched and where we've been based, and you know, I think there's been this, like I had this discussion about 2 or 3 weeks ago, like, and I used the example, I said, you know, you get into your car, you decide to drive, you know, you get on the plane, you decide to go to a certain place, and you arrive there, and you make a decision in terms of where you're going to stay, you know, and you've got the option. You either stay at a hotel, 5-star hotel, or you stay at a B&B. And you make that decision based on what you want, right? And you decide, okay, fine, I'm going to stay in a 5-star hotel. But that decision is pretty much ingrained in the fabric of society. And you know as a person, or any individual knows as a person, what the differentiation is between fantastic 5-star versus just run of the mill at the bottom. So I think our biggest challenge as a profession, and the profession as a whole, is that firstly, there's been very little communication and understanding from a patient's perspective in terms of what we do. And because there's very little understanding on that level, there's very little understanding and exposure in terms of what differentiates dental practices. And, you know, it goes back to what Mark has always been saying, you know, all dentistry is not equal. Like, he uses that as his slogan. And I think it's brilliant. You know, it's just absolutely special. And on the same token, you know, we constantly striving, and we're driving in the background. You know, we're differentiating our clinics. We're creating these amazing clinics, and we're creating these amazing workflows. But at the end of the day, you know, the level of communication that goes out to the public and that goes out to the patients is always left to that top 2 or 3% of people that are actually looking for dental services, or the other 5% that have had the opportunity to come into a top-end practice. And I think that's the greatest challenge that we face. And, you know, taking that into account, I think, if anything, you know, COVID-19 is a massive opportunity for us, because for years and years and years, we've been saying the same story. You know, the lowest paying things in our profession are probably the most important things in our profession. You know, like your scale and polish, and your oral hygiene, and your dental checks. And, you know, and at large, I think we've realized this, and we've realized the fact that, you know, we actually can't get an unbelievable remuneration for the most basic level. So we've had to recreate ourselves. We've had to augment ourselves. We've had to create these opportunities around us, which has been amazing and exciting. But there's only a handful of people within our profession that are capable of doing that. And I think it all comes back to communication. So like we were saying, you know, I think this is a huge opportunity for us, because suddenly the world is a lot more receptive in terms of what is adequate infection control. You know, they're a lot more receptive in terms of how important the basic necessities are. And I think moving forward, you know, if we can drive this, I think it will change the working environment for all of us. I don't know, Mark, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have the ability to add a lot of, not a lot, but yeah, a lot of value to everyone's lives as dentists, you know. And I personally, when we had this group discussion, when we were in this kind of crisis mode or finding out a way, I suggested, you know, that we even have national campaigns to educate people how important dentistry is, you know, at every different level. We're not talking about 20 veneers. We're talking about oral health, and we're talking about just the basic importance of oral health to everyone. You know, it's not exclusive to anyone. We all need it. And yeah, absolutely. I think that, and they were like, wow, okay, maybe. And I said, yeah, I think sometimes people don't really understand about, you know, the importance of having a healthy mouth, you know, yeah, and what the benefits are, or alternatively, you know, what the cost is to put an unhealthy mouth right. You know, that's often when they find out about how important dentistry is, sadly. And so, yeah, that was one of my requests. I said, please, can they take a chunk of money and put it into a national campaign to highlight across the board about how important dentistry is as a profession to the communities. So hopefully it happens. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's really a huge, you know, and yeah, I agree with Jameel. We kind of missed an opportunity to sell ourselves in a better way, you know, rather than as private clinics or whatever. Across the board, I'm not talking about the top end or the bottom end. I'm talking about dentistry. That's what, and I'm sure you all, yeah.
So Jameel, what's your current situation right now back home?
So we locked down before you guys, and we're still in lockdown. So that's not really been a good sort of pass map for the people who are making the decisions, right? So unfortunately, we're not really doing very much. We're stuck at home. Scotland has been really great because there is provision from the government for public dental services for the local population. So we're on call, and we can, if we get people that are really in having an emergency, swelling, really bad toothache, that kind of thing, we can refer them along to the public dental service. But in general, dental practices are not back open yet. And the process of opening them is going to be, you know, it's going to take a lot, you know, a little while. It's strange. We were also having this discussion just off air that you know, previously we used to think that the US and the UK were really the leading lights in guiding the world into different protocols and things, and it's not like that anymore. You know, it's amazing to see how New Zealand has come to the South Africa has come to the forefront. So the world's really changed, and now we're really having to look at South Africa and look at New Zealand, and then take the models and the things that they've produced, the resources they've produced, and then trying to feed them to our government to tell them to make proper decisions, not let some bureaucrat make the decisions on our behalf.
No, and I mean a huge thanks goes out to guys like Mark and Howie Gluckman and the team. I mean, these guys have been working extensively in the background, you know, putting these protocols together, looking at the research, sharing of international experiences, trying to decide, you know, which direction we go and what we do. And you know, we're very grateful to have that and to pretty much be back in practice again. So Jameel, from the conversation we had in terms of why dentistry, you know, what was your drive towards digital? How did you get involved with digital? And
yeah, so I always knew digital was out there. Even when I was trading in the US, we know digital was out there, but very few people were utilizing it or utilizing the full potential of it, because obviously the technology had to develop. And I remember walking into the head of the restorative sciences department in Boston, Dan Nathanson, and he had a CEREC machine there, one of the first or second generation CEREC machines, but it was sitting in the corner, it was covered up, and even he wasn't using it, right? So I graduated from the US with a firm based in analog dentistry, and I knew it was out there, it was somewhere out there that I would have to address this question that, is it ready yet? But I never thought it would be ready until a lot later. So part of the reason that flicked the switch, that I had to do something, was, after being in practice for a while, you complete a certain number of cases, and you have good outcomes and you have bad outcomes. And you learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your successes. And when I looked through a common thread of issues that we were having with different parts of the journey, it was really coming to the fact that what we did, what we promised the patient in respect of the result that they were going to get, as in shape, form, texture, morphology, could we actually duplicate that exactly? And that was the real frustrating thing for me, that I would put prototypes into the patient's mouth, and what we got back from the lab on occasion wasn't that. There was always a little bit of a difference, and the frustrating thing was patients saying to me, well, I like the shape of your prototypes a little bit better than we've got with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So partly that's due to the lab. Maybe it was the labs that I was using. So I thought to myself, well, maybe we should go and look for the better labs. And I thought to myself, well, we're the best labs there in the US. They've been involved with smile design and aesthetic cases for so long. So then I started sending a lot of my cases to Frontier in California and Gold Dust in Arizona. And yeah, the quality of the wax-ups came back really well, and the restorations were amazing as well. But there was still this little disconnect, that is it possible to replicate everything perfectly? Is it possible to, what we would term today, copy and paste things to that level of accuracy? And I was really fortunate at 2015 to I'd known about Christian Coachman, and I'd known about DSD for a while, but I took the plunge at that particular time, and I went out to the world tour in Istanbul in Turkey, and I just never looked back, because suddenly it was like that big light bulb moment that, oh my God, this is the way that all your problems will be solved. All the frustrations that you have could be solved through digital. And it was a matter then of just of jumping in and learning what to do.
I mean, that for me was pretty much my opener as well. My experience was, I started off with analog like you. I spent about 10 years doing pretty much analog, and then I got involved with CAD/CAM. I got involved in terms of chairside work. I did a lot of chairside work, and I really enjoyed it. In the sense that I could sit and create a visual in my head, or I could literally sit and do a wax up in the patient's mouth, or a composite mock-up, or whatever the story is, copy, scan it, prep, and deliver. So I really enjoyed that workflow. But it's exactly that. You need to have full control over your work. You need to have full control over your cases. And for me, the light bulb moment was also like attending DSD Module 1 in Spain. And that, everything changed. My whole practice changed, my workflow changed, my work streams changed. And, suddenly I saw how predictable and how definitive we could get the results. Mark, what was your drive towards digital?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of aesthetic work, and it's exactly, funnily enough, and I think it's a common thread that you'll find with a lot of dentists. And is firstly, and I put my hand up and apologize to all the CEREC users when I badmouthed and telling them how bad it was, because now it's like, digital dentistry, like, are you crazy? Why would you want to, why don't you take? And I was. And so, things started to change. And I think what really started to change, because I have to say, I was never sold on being that dentist who was going to mill and produce the restorations in my practice, because I was doing a lot of multiple units aesthetically. So it wasn't really something that I saw for me. But 100% the thing that frustrated me on every single case, and Shane, if he's watching, will agree, that we used to almost destroy each other, my lab, my technician, myself, and he's the most amazing guy, because I think technicians didn't really understand that we dentists didn't understand that there was such a valuable part of producing an accurate wax replica of the final restoration. So when we said, can we have a wax up? It was this random model with wax not in the right place, not so accurate. And then, you know, eventually when I got him to do these amazing wax ups, I said, charge me whatever you want. You know, please don't let the price be determined on the quality of the wax up.
Yep.
I did these amazing wax ups that were super expensive, and then we couldn't actually copy it through the whole process. We lost all the detail in the final restoration. So then I was like stuck with, okay, I've spent all this money on this beautiful wax up, but now the restorations are not a copy of what we produced. And so it was the frustration. And then suddenly, you know, companies started appearing that were selling scanners only. And that was like music to my ears, you know, rather than, you know, in South Africa, I don't know what it was like in South Africa, pretty much until scanners, you had to buy the package. So you had to buy a milling machine, you had to buy, and that really never appealed for me. So the moment scanners came on the market, it was like, I need one of those, because it was not, you know, this predictable workflow. And I think all of us can thank Christian 1,000 times, and we'll never thank him enough for what he did for us. I think you'd agree with me in terms of opening our eyes and making us understand what really is achievable. You know, and I still think there's a lot of scope for us to, not for us to convince, but for dentists to still understand the value of digital dentistry to our patients and our practices, you know, in terms of what it offers.
So
there's no way.
I mean, a question I pose to both you and Jameel, you know, if analog workflow, you know, what are the core, what are the most basic pieces of equipment they require to start getting involved with digital? And is it completely necessary to get, or is like almost like a very, very baseline prescription, you know? And the reason I'm asking this is that, you know, all our practices, like mine's, yours, Jameel's, you know, for us, the whole objective pre-COVID-19 was the fact that we wanted a digital workflow. We wanted predictable outcomes. We wanted to do things in the most efficient and predictable way and as accurately as possible the first time. You know, we didn't want to have this whole situation or scenario of multiple appointments, trial fitting. We wanted to go from start to finish very, very predictably, because we wanted to spend all the time in the background doing our design work, planning our cases. And, you know, all of that is going to feed back into our work. As possible, designing, preparing that case, and the day that I go in for procedure, it pretty much shortens the treatment time and the necessity for many treatments. And I think this is going to be an adoption that has to happen on a much greater scale than it did before this art involved at this stage, and they want to take the next step. You know, what, in your opinion, is like the way to go and the way to start?
So, you know, I think first of all, I think we have to try and quantify what digital dentistry is. And the European Academy of Digital Dentistry are producing a really nice, if you follow them on Instagram, a really nice series of posts explaining exactly what a digital dentistry is. So they're asking questions like, do you use a digital, you know, do you use practice management software in your office? Are you a digital dentist? And if the answer is yes, you are a digital dentist. Or similarly with respect to endo, that do you use rotary instruments to prepare your canals, etc.? This means that you're using equipment and technology, which means that you're a digital dentist. So I think when we look at things in that term, you know, if you take digital photographs, you're a digital dentist. So most people are doing digital dentistry in some way, but maybe they're not realizing it or calling themselves digital dentists. And for sure, you know, especially, I'm not sure how it is in South Africa, but for sure, people who, you know, dentists who've been sending normal analog impressions out to their technicians, the technicians have been using digital dentistry for far longer than we have, right? So they would take the model, they would pour it up, they would get the stone model, and then they would use a bench scanner to bring it into the digital world and then design their restorations and then mill it or center or whatever it is that they were going to do. So although maybe we haven't been using digital dentistry, they've been using digital dentistry for far longer than we have. And it doesn't really require a lot, I think, to get started. I mean, even if you don't have an intraoral scanner, as a lot of people don't, if you can take a good impression, right? If you can take a metal tray with no drag, with no bubbles, with no as accurate as you can, and you can transfer that to a lab that understands CAD/CAM and understands digital dentistry, then your workflow will become digital. But I think it's becoming more and more necessary that people need to have intraoral scanners in their offices for all the other benefits that it's going to give you. From the point of view of patient monitoring, where you can sequentially take scans and then monitor the mouth over a long period of time, to what we're talking about here, really higher end dentistry, where we're doing full mouth rehabilitations or aesthetic makeovers, where you can now copy things absolutely perfect. So I think it is possible still to use analog, but then bring it into the digital world if you can't invest in digital technology. But I think the intraoral scanner is definitely the thing that is, for me, something that I can't live without. We do have a milling machine, in that we did get a CEREC machine as well for single restorations, inlays, onlays, 2 or 3 together, that kind of thing. But I really believe that we have to outsource the bigger cases to specialists like CAD/CAM technicians to be able to deliver exceptional dentistry. But it's interesting having a milling machine in my surgery, in my clinic. I really love it. I think it's a great piece of equipment, but it's not something that I really want to be wasting my time on with full mouth rehabilitations and these. I know the dentists that want to do it that way, and that's great. And if that model works for you, fantastic. But I think definitely intraoral scanner for me is the one thing that I can't live without, and that's what I would really recommend other people get it. And there's good new ones coming on the market, right? So they're not as expensive as Mark said correctly. You don't have to buy the full package. You can just buy the scanner yourself.
Absolutely. And Mark, what's your take on it? I mean,
yeah, I think I'd agree, and I have to be honest. I'll put my hand up again, because I think within the next year or 6 months, I'm going to have a milling machine in my practice as well. By the way, because I think it's a great addition.
Jeez,
those cases. Well, for temporaries, for milling temporaries, chest side, like many different ways, we will be milling little things. And so I will be that guy who has the scanner and the milling machine in my practice. So
I'm super excited to hear this. I'm very excited to hear this, Mark.
But it's interesting that everybody, first of all, we weren't interested in digital, and then we did an intraoral scanner, got an intraoral scanner, and then from there, when you see how good it is, then you get a 3D printer, and then you get a milling machine. So it's one of these things that as soon as you get one thing, you just want to go and get all the other things.
Yeah, that's very much it. But
yeah, I think the thing that changed for me in terms of digital workflows, and again, that's about to change again, is obviously integrating or understanding how to take photographs, or to take photographs that you can use from a clinical point of view. So I don't mind whether you take them on a phone or you take them on a camera, but clinical photographs, diagnostic photographs, that you can make clinical decisions based on photographs. Of course, we're moving to facial scanners, but taking good photographs of a patient, of their face, so that we're starting the treatment looking at the face, not inside the mouth, for me changed a lot of things, in terms of understanding the final outcome or the demands of that case, and being able to tick many more boxes for each case. So photography was a game changer for me as well. It also allowed me to be critical about the work I was doing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I think we just bombed out for a second or two there. So, Mark, you're coming back to what you were saying.
I think it's Sam. Your connection is.
Yeah, I think your connection, Sam.
Are you guys fine? So, is it my connection?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. As long as you guys are good, I'm cool. Like they don't have to see too much of me.
I add one more thing that's super important, because that I've found with this whole process is that once I had a vision, you have to make sure that the lab has the same vision, and so that you speak the same language. And I have to be honest, and if we get onto that, being part of the DSD clinics and working with the planning center and people who really understand digital dentistry has made a difference for me. So and actually my lab was an analog lab, and I convinced them to change at the same time I was changing. It was difficult for them, but they thanked me for all those things that they had to go out of their comfort zone. So again, it's making sure that everyone understands what you're trying to do, so that there's no weakness in the process.
Yeah, they say that behind every great man is a great woman, but I think behind every great dentist is a great technician. And that this philosophy about getting your technician on board is so important. I think the only reason I was able to make the jump to DSD and to inculcate so many of the protocols so quickly was from Istanbul. I remember walking out on the main square, coming out of the lecture and taking a walk, and I was on the phone to my technician saying, "Listen, you've got to understand that digital is the way, and I'm going to come back and we're going to sit together and we're going to go through all the little things that I've learned or that I've understood from this, and you're going to have to try and adopt those things." So you definitely 100% have to have somebody that understands CAD/CAM with you to make it work. And that's why I'm so impressed. I mean, I didn't understand all the things that you were doing, Sam, in respect to this. That the CAD/CAM facilities that you have and the design facilities that you have. So well done for taking that leap sooner than other people.
No, I mean, for me, it was also. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the other concern that, I mean, it's still a concern. Like I often hear this comment from dental technicians, for that matter, saying that guys want to get involved with digital, and where do we fit into this? And I almost saw, I mean, like back in Johannesburg, I can comment in terms of what happened, is that you almost see that there's been a drifting away from the dental technicians and the dentists that actually had CAD/CAM technology in their practices. But the reality is, they slowly come back again, and we're seeing that more and more, and the technicians are understanding exactly the place that they or the role that they'll play in this equation, and the dentists understand the limitations in terms of how much they can do. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's example, I've got the ability to do things from start to finish in my clinic without moving out to the laboratory. But I mean, the complexity of what happens now at the laboratory perspective, and taking the STL, you get the same. There's no ways you get the same finish trying to do a chairside, and I can pretty much speak from experience, and I've got many years of experience of doing it both ways. So, there has to be that synergy. There has to be that relationship between the laboratory and the dental and the dentist over that time period. So, Jameel, here's the next question. Where do you see things going post-COVID? I mean, once you guys get back to clinic, I mean, how much different do you think it's going to be? And, are there going to be significant differences that we see?
This is a $1 million question, isn't it? I think everybody's worried and everybody's trying to think that what's going to be happening when we go back. So I think the first thing is that we really start to have to go back, right? We have to be able to convince the authorities that we're not super spreaders, that we're super clean. We've been utilizing these amazing cross-infection protocols for such a long period of time, even before COVID. We are a place that's safe to go to. But then once that's there, from what I've seen from the people that have been contacting me online and some of the virtual consultations we've been doing, there's still an appetite to get dentistry done. People still want to get cosmetic work done, still want to get implants done, still want to get, it's just been put off for a little while. So I'm hopeful that there's still going to be an appetite, there's still going to be a demand for the work that we're doing, but I think it's going to have to be framed properly. And and people who maybe were just after a fast buck, or maybe those people that really weren't interested in the total oral health of a patient, and were just focused on cutting teeth when they shouldn't have been cutting teeth, weren't focused on utilizing a minimally invasive dentistry, they're going to suffer a wee bit. But those people who are always looking at aesthetics from the point of view of function as the necessitating factor to complete the case, by educating the patient, you're still going to be creating beautiful teeth, but it's really from controlling disease, function, these type of things that's going to be the important thing, right? So if we frame it correctly, I think we're not going to have an issue. But I also think the important thing is that we're going to really have to try and get, it's great, Mark said, that you guys have come together and you're really united. And I think this is going to have to be really important because, dentists are going to need support more than ever now from each other. Maybe there was this thing about competition and there's more than enough work out there for everybody, but we really have to stick together as a profession in a united way. And that's why the DSD Clinics project, hopefully we'll come to that in a short while, has been so important. I mean, okay, you get a little bit of benefit from the fact that you're calling yourself a DSD clinic, but it's the community behind that I've been so impressed with. I mean, DSD has really stepped up over this COVID time and provided things for the clinics that have been unbelievable. The webinars, the meetings, the information has just been outstanding. So if somebody was thinking that, well, maybe it's a new process, we're going to have to wait for a period of time to see the real benefits of DSD clinics, certainly in my mind, all those questions have been dispelled. That it's an amazing group to be part of.
Amazing. And Mark, what's your thoughts on that?
So just first of all, for everyone who's watching, and I hope there's a whole bunch, wondering why I'm sitting at Newlands speaking to you guys, and that's because I know Jameel loves cricket, and I know that Newlands is one of his favorite places. So I thought I'd bring a smile to his face, given these challenging times. So listen, I think the same. In fact, one of the things I was focusing on in our practice before we stopped, and it's certainly one thing that I will focus on even more, when we do cases for our patients, is for them to understand that when they come and see me, and we go through a phase of treatment, this is not a 3-week or 3-month process. This is a lifelong commitment, and I'm going to provide them with the concern, the diagnosis, with the enthusiasm, with the answers, that I'm not just giving them something and then they go away and that's it. Like I think a lot of people look at dentistry, and I've said it before, and so I likened it to sort of if you were buying a super expensive car, that you get a service plan, and so when the patient finishes, we sign the contract together that they know what they have to do to look after their mouth, and I'm there to help them look after their mouth. And this is the contract that we're going in together. So that's the kind of depth that I think that we need to really think about, to make sure that people really value what we're doing for them, because it isn't just making people have better looking teeth. There's a lot more to it than that.
The question I'm always faced with, and and I've been faced with this, I mean, time and time again. I'll often hear the comment that, oh, you're a cosmetic dentist. Do you only do cosmetic work? And I often turn around and I'll say, can you show me someone's mouth where their teeth look fantastically good, but there's functional problems happening on the inside? It doesn't really exist. So generally, most of the cases that we treat and most of the cases that we fix have got functional breakdown that actually happens in the background. It's the fact that people are consciously and cosmetically aware of it that drives the whole treatment process in most cases. And, I think it's critically important that, that level of communication needs to change with us. It needs to be, people need to understand, as well as, amongst our colleagues as well, if you're doing cosmetic, you really need to be at the top of your game. You really need to have good understanding in terms of the function, You really need to understand your occlusion. You really need to understand things from an endodontic standpoint in terms of, you know, what you can and can't do and what your limitations are. Marginal adaptation, gingival adaptation. I mean, so all these things become that much more critical with the added stress on it that you still have to make it look fantastically good. So, I mean, yeah, I think from a conversation and communication standpoint, I think there would be a lot that would change over a period of time. So going on to the next thing, I mean, why DSD Clinic, Jameel? What drove you towards it? What are the benefits around it? And I mean, we know the benefits. I know the effort that they've put in through this time. I mean, the webinars pretty much on a daily basis, the coffee breaks with Coachman, the roundtable discussions. But I want to hear it from your perspective. You know, where do you see the value actually lies with it?
Yeah, okay, so I think for me, it was just a logical progression, a next step that we would go through, bearing in mind that, you know, the attitude to dentistry or our philosophy on dentistry changed in 2015. Although we were doing facially driven aesthetic dentistry, but to do facially aesthetic digital dentistry was something that was totally different, something that was totally new. So it was really a game changer for us. It's something that every single one of our cases go through, if it's going to be implants, ortho, restorative, or full interdisciplinary case. So, you know, doing some of those cases, and you became a DSD master, you know, submitted the cases that you did to DSD, and then they would examine it, etc. And then from there, becoming a DSD instructor, or KOL as they're now called. So it was like the next logical thing to do, to try and bring the concept of a clinic that was immersed in DSD to everybody else. Now, I think, you know, one important thing is to realize that, you know, you've got the DSD concept, but you've also got DSD company, which is two totally different things. And, you know, the concept is something that everybody can utilize. Doesn't matter where you are, but the company is producing products that make your life easier. So things like Mark alluded to, that the DSD Planning Center is really an amazing resource, you know, to help you with your digital cases, plan them, to deliver them. It really produces some excellent work. And to be involved with a DSD clinic, I don't think it's there just yet, but certainly DSD clinics will only be able to access certain parts of the planning center. So that made a bit of a no-brainer for us. The other thing is that we wanted to try and get word out to the general public that, you know, we were a little bit different. So we wanted to show that we were differentiated from everybody else. And this was a really great way of explaining it through the DSD journey. So DSD clinic journey has been something that is still ongoing. It's something that is still evolving. It's still getting better. But from a dentist point of view, the resources that they are producing have been absolutely outstanding. So like you said, okay, coffee break with Coachman, this is something that everybody can access, or some of the webinars, something that everybody can access. But the WhatsApp and the chat groups that we have with people putting up cases and discussing things, and not just with respect to dentistry, but with respect to marketing, with respect to running your clinics, with respect to biosafety, has really been outstanding. And we have meetings on a weekly basis called Co-Grow, where we really, all the clinics get together and discuss what they're doing. You know, how we can do better dentistry, how marketing can be better, how you know, our processes can be improved from the whole cycle of marketing for patients. So they've, like I said, what's been really impressive for me is how they've stepped up in this COVID time to deliver such amazing resources for us. So it's like having like a mini cooperative together, you know, where everybody's pooling information, pooling resources from respect of knowledge and what works and what doesn't, and sharing it in a very open way. So yeah, I'm super happy that we're part of it, and I'm sure Mark is, and he'll give us his experience with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, before you carry on, I just want to add one more thing around there, Jameel, and I'm sure this will feed into what you're going to tell us, Mark. But I think, you know, the thing is, when we come out of dental school and when we start our practices and we start getting involved in aesthetic work and we grow and things unfold, you know, we become really good clinicians and clinically we excel. But I mean, running a dental practice is a multifaceted animal. I mean, there's so many different facets that feed into it. And the one thing we don't know and we don't have enough training around is, you know, the marketing aspect of it and the communication. And that pretty much is the key in terms of where you make the step. And I think for me, you know, my biggest attraction to DSD was the fact that I was always, you know, looking at my history and where I went to dentistry, you know, I always wanted a little bit more. So I spent a lot of time, you know, investigating the whole marketing aspect and the whole communication aspect. And it was the first time that I sat down in a presentation when I did module 1, for example, and I thought, geez, oh my God, these guys are on the same page as me, you know, I'm on the same page as them. Like, I mean, it was really that eye-opener. So, sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You can,
it's fine.
You can share your experience in terms of, you know, what made you make that decision, and, you know, what value has it added to your practice?
So I think that all of the above, that Jameel, but I for sure was feeling like I didn't want to miss out on this kind of movement of knowledge and enthusiasm and vision for where dentistry was going. And there's no question that the group that we're talking about, you know, and it's not one person, although, you know, there's obviously Christian to thank, as a group has so much influence and knowledge about our profession and to offer from all aspects, from clinical, marketing, business, every aspect, you know, that when we sit on our own, it's really quite difficult to draw on all this information. But to have it under one roof with so many dentists who are not competing against each other, you know, we're just trying to add to everyone's success, which is a unique experience in dentistry, because, you know, this is something that often doesn't happen. You know, we kind of take an idea and we want to keep it to ourselves in case our competitors see it. But in the DSD, that's not the case. You know, we're taking all our best ideas and sharing them. And this is really a unique thing that I've never seen on any other group in dentistry.
Absolutely. I mean, so coming back to DSD Clinic and the whole DSD concept, I mean, do you think, Jameel, Mark, do you think there's going to be some development around DSD bringing something along the fact of integrating? And I'm just trying to get my head ahead of or I'm trying to like see what's to come. But do you think there would be some development around the whole virtual consultation platform and then tying it into like the DSD app, for example? Or do you think that there's going to be a greater approach towards, you know, looking at our practices and showcasing it and portraying it more from a holistic perspective as opposed to just the aesthetic perspective, you know? And I mean, if anyone needs to take that drive, if anyone's going to develop it on that sort of level, I mean, there would be no better party in the world than DSD, you know? So I'd just like to hear, you know, is there anything that points us in that direction?
I'll let Mark answer that first of all.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. So I think that for sure, because, you know, again, without letting anything out of the bag, you know, again, through our DSD community, I'm seeing amazing things happening on artificial intelligence, you know, and but we can bring it out in the open that the DSD app is an amazing tool, and it's going places that I think we imagined it would go, but much quicker. Yeah. And so I think that we will have all these assets, which are amazing, to be able to have all these virtual stuff. But I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking that's unbelievably good. Is it really helpful for the patient? Is it helpful for the dentist? Because I think the patients still need to understand that someone needs to make really solid clinical decisions about what's going to happen to them. And someone has to have the clinical skills to carry out what's going to happen to them. And so, you know, again, that's where I see the DSD group as a group, which is a unique group because they are highly skilled, highly trained, highly intelligent, highly motivated, highly successful dentists, as being not only having the tools, but being those people who have the skills to deliver the sort of work, because I think we mustn't, be distracted from all these amazing things that we are clinicians. We need to be able to carry out treatments or make decisions for patients as to what is the appropriate treatment. But yes, I see all of that stuff happening. So that's my kind of take.
And one of the things with respect to the virtual consultation, that this is something that DSD have been looking at for a while. The partner that's in charge of marketing is a guy called Brendan McDonald. He's based out in Liverpool. Really super intelligent guy. He's producing some amazing resources out. But they haven't really produced their own part of the app, which is with respect to virtual consultations just yet. They're looking at a lot of different things and recommending a few different ways to do it. So there's some really nice ones. There's Smile Virtual Consult online. There's SmileMate as well, which is another really good one. Just as a point of fact, we've been doing a lot of virtual consults ourselves. And, when people are now contacting us for consultations or whatever, I'm just directing them to a Zoom meeting that I'm going to have with them. And I've got a keynote that I've prepared with an introduction to the clinic. And then I've asked them to send the photos and I put them in there. And then we have a little bit of a chat. And, I think this is really going to be the way to go because I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's got rid of a lot of the people that sometimes make an appointment and then don't come in, right? So you don't have to worry about that because they're not getting back to you to make an appointment with that. So the people who tend to make an appointment for a virtual consult, number one, they'll keep it. And number two, they already have then the information that they need to come in and start paying for treatment. So I kind of envision the way it will go in our practice is that we will get one of our staff members to do the like treatment coordinator to do the virtual consults. Although we'll probably move on to something like Smile Virtual Consult or SmileMate because especially with Smile Virtual Consult, the difficult thing is the follow-up if I had to do it with Zoom by myself. So then I have to go and schedule the appointment with the patient and I have to get them in. Whereas it's automated in these other apps that you can get. So, it makes it much more easier to send out the following email and the reminder emails to make appointments, etc. But it is something that's very important. Teledentistry is going to happen at some point. Obviously there's a lot of legal and logistic things that we have to look at, but it's a super interesting way of looking at things and in a good way in this COVID time to start to get into.
Absolutely. I mean, when all of this happened, during the lockdown, we had some crazy innovations that we came up with. Firstly, we re-looked at all our protocols, we rewrote it. But on the other side of it, we managed during that time period to launch our Think Virtual platform. So pretty much virtual consultation platform. It's asynchronous. So you can upload your stuff, and then we'll retrieve it in the background. And then, I think there are various different levels that will come into play. And I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll develop more and more around it. But one of the things I've really enjoyed, I still prefer synchronous communication. I want to see my patient. I want to have my slideshow open. I want to get them into, I want to share my screen, show them everything that's going on, be able to communicate across that level. And I really enjoyed it, But I think in terms of the way I think it would be a critical way to actually, communicate post-op instructions, pre-op instructions, post-op instructions. And I think once the whole process becomes fluid, I think it will take away a lot of the burden in terms that there would be less risk in terms of have we forgotten to contact this patient, or did we give this patient the right post-op instructions? Like, here you go, here's the process. You're going to come in today, you're going to have an implant placed. Here's your pre-instructions, your pre-op instructions. You leave, we know that the patient's left at 2 o'clock. At 3:30, they get a little message onto their phone, a short video from myself or one of the clinicians saying, hey, I hope you're doing well. Don't portal. I think there's huge opportunity to develop it and grow it. We looked at Smile Virtual as well. And I'll be honest with you, my whole take on it was very, you know, it was very American in the sense that is a lot more, it's just different, you know, we're a different culture. And we're very similar to the UK culture for that matter. You know, it needs to be personalized. You know, when people see like some prefabricated thing coming across, you know, I think maybe it works in that environment. It really wouldn't work in ours, my opinion of it. So it would be very interesting to see, you know, from a virtual consultation platform, how much of that actually develops and how much of it we can bring into the workflow. So, Jameel, the last thing I want to touch on, I mean, you know, AI, the development in terms of AI, in terms of where we see this going, and you know, what would it bring? Do you think that there's been anything through this pandemic or through this outbreak that has almost created a leapfrog opportunity for AI in terms of dentistry? Do you think that there would be some of the benefits that we've been working on in the background that would just come to the table a lot quicker?
Yes, I do. I think AI is definitely very, you know, artificial intelligence, very exciting, because what you're really talking about is automating a lot of the things that we do right now to make our already, you know, digital workflow a lot more efficient, even though it's efficient already. So taking out some of those things, like when we're doing smile design, as Mark alluded to, you know, just to be able to take the photo and then within a couple of seconds, the smile design's done for you, plus the 3D rendering and the 3D wax up. So within a space of about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, it can be done. So there's things like this that are going to make it a lot more easier. But I think where it's going to happen really a lot quicker will be with respect to COVID, is going to be with respect to things like digital passport immunity and things like this, you know, where we can have people's data on the mobile phone. You know, you've got all your medical history, you've got your immunity status, and these things, and then passing these on very easily to be analyzed by dentists or by medical practitioners, etc., and sharing this information, and then sort of screening those people that, you know, are more at risk. So I think, you know, there's definitely a good thing for, you know, an opportunity here for the dentist to be more of a screener for different diseases and things like this, especially if we get these desktop, you know, COVID testing things. Yep. You know, so you know they released in the US the Abbott one that does it in about 15 or 20 minutes. So, you know, to be a point of care referral for those type of things, you know, dentists could be doing this. But then for screening for all these other things, it could be done on a routine basis at the dentist rather than at other places, at other labs, because I think those all these type of things will come to the fore a lot more quicker than ordinarily it would have. You know, so, you know, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, having to share your information and then to, you know, to do the Bill Gates thing, we injected with this that everybody's worried about. So I don't know how it's going to go, but it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hello to Lino Adolf. I think you see he's just joined our feed as well. He's watching in the background. Great CEREC technician, really involved with Sirona, and I think at some point we'll have him online as well. Mark, I mean, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime that we can have more accurate decision making in dentistry has to be a good thing. You know, in terms of, you know, us not seeing something, even just a basic thing as reading an X-ray. You know, yep. That if you took a simple X-ray, you know, that some days we're going to look at it better than other days, maybe because we're being distracted. But there's so many areas in dentistry that can be not just simplified, but made better and more precise through artificial intelligence that we don't even realize, you know, that say, for instance, a CBCT or a radiograph comes in. And it's happened to me where I've looked at it and I didn't see something, but I saw it the next time, whereas those sorts of things won't happen. And so, you know, whether it's from a clinical point of view or from a practice administrative point of view or from a marketing point of view, I think for sure we can only benefit from artificial intelligence. There's no question. I don't know if there's any part of the profession that's scared of it. I'm not sure, but we can only benefit from it.
Yeah, and it's amazing how there's a whole big circle that actually plays with it, or there's a whole big framework that comes to mind. And Mark, and Jameel, like every time I do my presentations, I touch on one framework, and I've used various different frameworks that I've learned and developed, and some of it on the MBA program, some of it through courses that I've taken in terms of applying it to my business, building the model, making it more efficient. But there's one concept I always touch on, and I go back to over and over again, and I talk about how dentistry is a service level industry, and how we can see that evolution is happening where we're somewhat of a hybrid, in the sense that it's a lot more tangible. The variability is decreased. We'll always be inseparable in this, in the sense that we're doing that 30-minute procedure, whether we've got 5 surgeries or 1, we can only do that specific thing at that specific time. And the last thing with that is quality control. Service level industries, very low quality control. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean the service is poor, but there's no way of managing it. There's no way of evaluating, this is what we planned out to do, have I achieved that end result? And you look at what's happened with COVID, and you look at my thinking around it, that crisis is a shortcut to evolution, and we're going to see a lot of this come into play as time goes on. And I think AI is going to play a critical role in terms of quality control, because give it 2 or 3 years, I think the thing in terms of where bad dentistry and bad procedures are going to be able to be masked for a couple of years are not going to be the case. So I think it plays a critical role with that, and I think we're going to see quite a lot of changes in the dental environment when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
So, guys, the last thing I want to touch on, Jameel. The last time you were here with us, there was some amazing stuff that you showed us in terms of Lorentz stumps, adaptations, and the texture that you were getting out with your restorations. Has there been any further progression along those lines, or is there something also keeping in line with that you want to share with us?
No, I think there's always improvements that can be done. I think right now, we really have to try and understand milling technology a lot better. Milling strategies, the ability to be able to scan in high definition and design in high definition, so you'll be able to produce those files exactly. So one was to create or to be able to replicate the shape. The other one was to be able to take the texture and morphology to just a different level and produce that in the restoration without having the technician to do it. So, there's loads of different ways that Laurent's doing it and people around the world are doing it. But I think it's just a case of just watch this space, because things have kind of slowed down now because of COVID. Nobody's seeing any patients. We can't test any of these things out. And we're just going to really have to wait for a time where things get back to normal before we can start this R&D again.
So, and Jameel, just to get back to that, what is your current workflow now, or just before the COVID pandemic broke out? What was your current workflow? So you were doing DSD markup design, facially driven smile design. That was getting sent off to DSD Planning Center to actually create the 3D modeling for you. You were probably 3D printing it in-house with your technician, guided tooth preparation, 3D scan again. That was getting sent off to the 3D Planning Center, to DSD Planning Center for the overlap. And in terms of the finishing part, were they finishing it for you, or was that still moving on to Laurent to finish?
People really have a choice. And, I've used some cases with the DSD Planning Center, and I've used other cases with local labs. And that's just a personal choice from case to case, and depends on case selection as well. But I like using Laurent a lot, because he's somebody that really understands CAD/CAM in a way that very few people understand CAD/CAM, especially the milling procedures. That's super important for producing these restorations. So you've described it very well there. That's really the workflow that I'm sure Mark follows, that I follow, that a lot of the restorative dentists follow when we're trying to produce beautiful restorations. But the last point of it, where we're actually producing those restorations, is really the bugbear for a lot of people. I know Milos from Romania has got a really nice way of doing things as well with his full digital workflow, and he uses a specific printer. And but again, the technical part of finishing the restorations in a lot of cases, even with Paulo Cano and some of the labs that he uses, like Rafael Ferro in Brazil, is to actually enhance the morphology by hand. So you've got the direct, you've got some parts of the morphology being able to be mulled, fine details you haven't been able to mull, and then the lab have to kind of grind it in slightly and then polish it. But it's taking those little bits out of the equation and having the mill being able to produce it. And again, that comes really down to milling strategy. That really comes down to how the file that you've got from the lab, how did they scan it? Does the amount of triangles that it has to be able to give all those fine details. So again, it's one of these things that very few people understand. I don't understand it, to be 100% honest with you exactly, but you really need good CAD/CAM technicians like Laurent, like Angelo Raphael, people like this who really understand it to be able to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. And just on the other point I wanted to touch on quickly, Jameel, was first fit technology. How far has that gotten? Have you used a lot of it? Have you implemented a lot of it into the practice?
Again, it's one of these things that's not for every case. It's one of these things, again, that case selection is super important for. For the cases that I have utilized for, it's worked out beautifully. I got sent a photo by Mo Fares today. It's actually on the BFAS Fit Instagram page of the new guides that they're utilizing to seat the carriers to seat the restorations. So it's a new design, and the design looks amazing. I know Bruno Pereira from Spain, from Marbella, the one clinic. He's been doing a lot of research onto this, but it's a totally new carrier that allows you to floss in between and to separate the teeth when you're putting them on. And that was a big problem with the other carriers, that we'd have to use the 10mm series sword to be able to separate the teeth. So all of those things are being improved. It's a work in progress. Some people agree with it, some people don't agree with it. But my philosophy and my advice to people with respect to this is that digital preparation, or to be able to control things digitally through a guide, it's a no-brainer. People understand it. It's going to be the way that things go. And the cases that I've done and the cases that I've seen being done, not being done under local anesthetic, because you're sure you can control it into enamel, and that's a game changer. To be able to control that level is amazing.
I mean, for me, the greatest challenge, the greatest challenge when we went into trying to overlap these cases, in terms of copying it to the DSD, my greatest challenge was actually adapting the way I prep so that the instrument geometry could get into the ceramic to actually mill it at that minimal thickness. And the most challenging areas in terms of the instrument geometry getting in is very much around the facial and the incisal areas, limited access, so it's almost like understanding what the machine is going to do, so that when you're prepping, you know exactly how you want to refine that prep, or where you want to compensate, so that you don't get those areas where there's very little adaptation.
Yeah.
So,
Mark,
Mark,
did you find that's a question actually? Did you find with all the digital cases that you're doing right now that you've had to adjust your preps?
Yeah, I think that if you actually reverse the question and you speak to the lab and you ask the lab, like, what was the problem with the case, they'll say there was a problem because the preparation didn't adapt to the design, and so that was a weakness. And of course that was a huge weakness when it was wax, because the wax had no idea of the thickness of wax that the technician was ever putting on. You know, one day it was this thick, the next day it was this thick, and that varied all the time. So, you know, the preparation is the key thing, and to be able to control the preparation is really the key thing. You know, that's what makes the difference. You know, if you don't have control on the preparation, then you're going to lose the detail again. You know, that's the key. And it's interesting. Just one other thing, while we're talking about the concept of natural algorithms, you know, natural morphology, texture, and all of that. And I was, again, you know, one of those guys who was like, okay, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. And then I did a few cases of injection molding, which is now using composite and it gets rid of all the problems you had with ceramic, because you're just directly taking all this information and putting it on the tooth. And it was like, I have to say, I was blown away. And again, it's not for every case, but I was blown away of how we can use digital technology now in direct restorations. You know, in a way, sometimes we dream in indirect, because we have to go through the preparation process, and then the overlapping of the files. You're just taking the final file and just putting it on the tooth. and yeah, I have to say that the cases that I've done with injection molding have been also, you know, again, just taking the digital workflows to another level.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is the thing at the end, you know, like, it's you know, there's always so many areas that we can just develop and just get better and better and better. I mean, the instrument geometry and understanding exactly, and that's a message I want to get across as well. You know, like, you need to spend time with your technicians. You need to understand exactly what milling unit they're utilizing. You need to understand exactly what the minimal instrument geometry requirements are. And if you don't understand that, and you don't have that understanding of it, or you don't have a relationship with your technician, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, you can get the best design out of the DSD Planning Center, for example, or from your technician or wherever, but then you try and replicate that into ceramic, being super conservative, it's not the easiest thing. So I think guided preparation, I mean, would definitely be the future, you know. I think Angelo's he did a webinar about 2-3 weeks ago with Lucan and himself did a webinar about 2-3 weeks ago, and he went through his workflow in terms of how they're using and maybe Mark and Jameel, maybe both of you can elaborate a little bit more on this. But you know, they've gone and taken a conventional DSD case, then created the prep guides for each aspect of that case. So you've got a facial prep guide, incisal prep guide, so 2 or 3 different prep guides, and the results that he was getting out with that. I mean, have you guys had a lot of experience with using those prep guides designed from the planning center, and what sort of results have you guys seen with that?
So I've used 1 or 2 of them, and I've really liked the way that it's been done. I mean, Laurent produces them as well routinely when we're doing cases together. So it's good, but I don't think it's as good as controlling it with the first fit system. So you know, when we have more of these guides to be able to control the preparation with the special handpiece and bar, it'll be becoming much more accurate for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, I think that we have a lot to learn from, obviously, implant dentistry, who were the first adapters to guided, you know, dentistry. And I use the same thing that, you know, how I'm lucky to work with Howie, who's probably, maybe I'm biased, the best implant dentist in the world. But I can tell you that he doesn't do implants without guides, fully guided, you know, if he can, and that's his go-to. And so, as restorative dentists, you know, we need to work in a guided way if we want to be predictable. And the one thing that I would say is that, you know, if I did the same case in an analog way 10 times, I would get 10 different results. There's no question. If I did the same case in a digital way, it's most likely that I will get pretty much 10 of the same results. You know, and that's a big difference. You know, that you know, for me, was a game changer. You know, was that I would just get the same result 10 times in a row, which meant that from a kind of, you know, if we're going back and we're evaluating how well we did in the case, that's exactly what you want.
So my last question to both of you, and I think we need to start wrapping it up, because I could easily spend another hour chatting to you guys. But my last question is, you know, with all of us, I mean, we've pretty much had an analog background before we went a reconstruction case. So I understood how to do a veneer case from an analog perspective, and I understood all those challenges, and then we made the transition to digital. And, you know, there was great value for me actually having both backgrounds in terms of dentists coming out now and going straight into digital, you know. And it was a conversation I had with Christian a couple of years ago. I said, you know, at the end of the day, what's your thoughts on that? And he said, you know, you look at the schooling systems, for example, and the studies have actually shown that it's still more critical to get people to actually develop their hand-eye dexterity and their control, you know, and to get them started first on an analog platform before they go into digital. Needs to be a transition, or could people go straight from, you know, out of the dental environment straight into digital?
I think we're still going to be utilizing analog for a little while, especially because, you know, in dental schools, maybe the funding's not there to have a scanner with every student. So, you know, I think for the next foreseeable future, you still get trained in analog, and then once you understand the deficiencies of that, it's easy enough then to change over to digital. But I agree with you. I think there definitely is a case that, you know, we have to be able to focus on hand-eye coordination and the motor skills to be able to do these if something went wrong in the unlikely event. I mean, this was always a thing with guided surgery too as well, wasn't it? What if the guide, for some reason on the day, there were some issues with it, and then you'd have to go back to brain-guided surgery. So you still have to have that knowledge of 3D positioning of the implant and those type of things, even when you're utilizing guided surgery. So there are different ways to do it. I mean, you know, one of the biggest companies in the world that's producing so many digital technologies is Zirkonzahn, the company. And if you have to go to any of the training centers, the whole day in Austria at the main training center, the whole day starts with waxing up. So even though they're utilizing everything digital, they get their technicians to wax up for an hour, hour and a half, whatever, get back their head into that the artistic and the motor control of utilizing their hands before they then go ahead and do anything else. So, you know, there's different ways to do it. It doesn't have to be just specifically with an analog workflow. I mean, you can train your eyes and your hands in a different way.
Great. Mark, is there something you want to add to that?
No, I have one slide with a lecture that says someone needs to guide the guide.
100%. Guys, I mean, this has been really cool. I really enjoyed the conversation. Jameel, once again, thank you for sharing your time and taking time out of your schedule. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for all the knowledge. Thanks for always being there to support us in the background. I mean, I've leaned on you lots of times in the past, and I still do, you know, in terms of my go-to. So, you know, we really appreciate your time. Mark, thank you so much for joining today. I was hoping that you could make it, and I'm very glad to have you on board. And yeah, so until the next one, see you guys soon.
Great. Thanks again for inviting me, and
Thanks, Jameel.
time with you guys.
Cheers.
Okay, all the best. Take it
All
easy.
the best, Cheers.
Cheers.